Alrighty, so I did my diversity field experience on a mother who was homeless with two children. Some background information on participant one, the mother. She has two children, like I said. She was homeless in St. Paul, Minnesota. She's of the African American race, but she did grow up in a middle class lifestyle in Mendota Heights, Minnesota, which is about 15 minutes from St. Paul. And then this all happened because she was choosing to move out of her family house and run away with her boyfriend at the time. And then a little bit of insight on her two children, participant 2 and 3. Participant number 2 is the older brother. He is now in middle school, but he was in elementary school while being homeless. Again, he's of the African American race, and he was surprisingly willing to talk. Going into my interview with this family, I was kind of weary if the children would be kind of open to talking or feel comfortable talking about the situation, or if they even remembered a lot. And one thing that he said that stood out to me was that he felt that he was looked at as garbage when he was homeless by people he did know and people who he did not know. And participant number 3 is, again, the youngest brother. He is in kindergarten now, so he was newly born when this incident happened. He is, again, of the African American race, and he is shy. So going into this diversity field experience, I kind of knew a little bit about homeless rates due to my aunt working in a homeless shelter, but I decided to go and do some research on my own, just to get a little bit more insight before going into this interview so that I could be well educated before asking questions. I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I wanted to just kind of get to know more of the backstory on some statistics before interviewing. And since this family is from Minnesota, I decided to kind of focus in on my research in the kind of Twin Cities area of Minnesota, just so it kind of relates more towards her situation. So I found that in the recent studies in Minnesota, the most common reason for women to enter a homeless shelter is domestic violence. 46% of women are staying in abusive relationships because of their children and their families. They don't want to kind of interrupt what is going on. They would rather just stay in an unhealthy relationship than to better themselves and their family at that time, because they kind of feel that's all that they can do. They feel powerless. 69% of children under the age of 18 and 53% of them have at least one child. And then domestic violence is the reason for 1 in 3 homeless children in Minneapolis. So these statistics were kind of shocking to me and very saddening. But again, these don't necessarily mean that this is why this family was homeless. So, my experience. Why did I decide this area for my diversity field experience? I thought to myself, have you ever had biased thoughts that would cloud your judgment? For as long as I remember, the word homeless was perceived in a negative way. Before I had my first experience within the homeless culture, 3 words came to mind when I heard that word. And those 3 words were drug, poor, and scary. Since then, I've had numerous encounters, and I can say that my judgment has changed. But it's because of this interview that I am glad that I decided to narrow in on this diversity area, because no kid wants to be labeled by the word homeless. So during this interview, or during this slideshow, I'll go into some questions that I asked, but when interviewing the son, I was very taken back and at a loss for words when he would describe his experiences and what he remembers on what the situation he was in and how he feels about it now. While this interview was done, I conducted a 2-hour interview and interaction with the family. It was done at the St. Paul Community Center. It was kind of just a way that the family could feel more comfortable, especially for the kids. I didn't want it to seem as formal. Like, I wanted them to be able to be themselves. And to my surprise, the oldest child was very talkative and wanted to go and get his own input out there. And he was very passionate about his choice of words. 3 main questions that I asked them. When you found out you're expecting with your oldest, what were your initial thoughts? So the mother she said she was 24 when this happened, and when she found out she was expecting with her boyfriend at the time, she was very excited. She didn't really think anything of it because at this point they were still living in an apartment in St. Paul. So that she said that with her oldest, she was really excited. But she said when it came to her youngest, she was terrified. She didn't know what to do because she had already been in a relationship of about 4 to 5 years. That it had some domestic violence in it, and she just didn't know what else she would do. She thought she was trapped. So when she found out she was pregnant with her youngest, she didn't know what to do, and because this was when she kind of started to realize that she didn't think she'd be able to A, stay in the relationship, and B, support her family in this apartment. And then when I asked the family, what do you think the community could do to make something like this less common? The mother decided she wanted to speak first and then let her kids decide if they wanted to talk. And something that she said that really stuck out to me was just to be aware. She said it's easy to have a blind eye with things that don't concern you. She said, but I have to say that it is how I was when I was a kid. She's like, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand homelessness. I didn't understand what it took to get there. She said, until it literally happened to me and I had to figure out what to do on my own. And then I asked her, what was one positive thing you took out of this negative experience? And she kind of took a while, and she looked around, and then she looked at her children, and then she said, being able to say that I did everything in my own power to get myself and my boys out of the situation. She said that was the most rewarding experience I ever had. And when this was happening, they were on their own, and then they were actually at the Dorothy Day Center for about 2 years, and the Dorothy Day Center is in St. Paul, and it is where my aunt actually worked. So that was pretty cool, and it's open Monday through Sunday. During the day, provides services for mental illness along with lunch and some cleaning supplies. Cots are laid on the ground for people who need to sleep, and if women get there early enough, there is a woman-only section on the second level, but is on first come, first served basis. So that is kind of some background knowledge on what they were living life. Some further knowledge, to hear stories that their mother and children went through. They as a family have overcome the statistics and are living in a 2-bedroom apartment now that my aunt housed them in. Some of the regulations for them are that they are providing some sort of income. They must be honest with how many are living there. Only limit to children, however many the location allows. No drug use, no alcohol use, and if any of these are broken, there will be one warning given to the state, and then they will be out. And then the 2 kids are attending school. Again, one is in elementary school and one is now in middle school. The mother is working on a full-time job and is in the hopes of obtaining a career in counseling, because this is something that she wishes she had, but she does know she has to go to college to get that. And then this project hits home for me, as for as long as I can remember, my aunt would bring me to the homeless shelters or on walks around the cities to take the homeless community. I have watched this terrible and heartbreaking concept we have in this world plateau through many years as an adult without having a platform to speak upon, until now, which is why I would ask my students in my further classrooms to try to be more aware, be generous, and to be kind to those around you, because you never know what someone else is going through. Thank you.